Welcome to Socket. Today, I want to touch back on my podcast from 2 weeks ago, Get Busy Living or Get Busy Dying. Since that time, I have watched something called Live to 100, The Secrets of the Blue Zones with my husband. And we were just fascinated. As soon as we turned it on, we just flew through them. I think there's 4 episodes. And it is a man named Dan Buettners, I believe you say it. And he has studied longevity and people that live to 100 and beyond for decades. He traveled all over the world to different parts of the world that are considered these blue zones, which are places on this planet that lots of people live to be 100, way more than other places. So he thought, well, they must be doing something right. So we should study them and see what can we bring back to our culture, to the United States. And so the different places that he went to were, and I'm going to do my best with the with the names. I'm not great at pronunciation sometimes. Okinawa, Japan; Sardinia, Italy; Icaria, Greece; Nicoya, Costa Rica; and then Loma Linda in California, which was the only spot in the US that he covered for this particular endeavor that he had. And he interviewed people, he spent time with them, he kind of lived alongside of them for periods of time to find out what on earth are they doing that's causing this vitality that extends. And some of the most fascinating parts of the journey that he had that I noticed was how often he referenced community and happiness and a positive attitude. And that was such a common thread that at the end of the series, when they wrapped it all up, they put the kind of the secrets in 4 categories. And those categories ended up being movement and habit, positive outlook, eating wisely, and connecting with others. So if you take that positive outlook and you take that connection with others, that is 50% of their research of what makes someone live a longer life. And that is stuff I talk about all day long. Between Socket, with the branch moms, I look at the purpose for my life and what I like to dive into and what I like to discuss and what I like to just yap about all day long. Is finding those connection points, making sure that you don't feel like you're by yourself, reaching out to others when you need help. So I want to tell you a little bit more about this series. I'd love for you to watch it. It's on Netflix. If you look it up, you'll find it very quickly. And I think it's less than an hour an episode, so it goes by super fast. It could even be like a long afternoon, or we did it in 2 evenings because we're so excited to watch it. And coming off my 50th birthday and the podcast I did, the Get Busy Living, Get Busy Dying of, okay, everything I do, especially after 50, with, the decades of my life and my earlier part of my life behind me, and now decades that my body's not going to be quite as forgiving, not going to be as resilient as it used to be, just because of age in general, that I want to make sure that the habits that I'm making sure I'm following and the way I'm living my life are going to lead to vitality, lead to longevity, lead to mobility in my daily life that is going to extend for decades and decades to come. It's kind of interesting to wonder, like at 50 years old, if I were to live to 90, let's say, that's 4 decades from now. Like, what advancements will happen? What will be available to us in 4 decades? And is everyone going to end up living longer at that point? Because there are new ways of protecting our longevity, or are some of us just so stuck in these awful patterns of eating crap food, not putting the right stuff in our brain, not having a positive mindset, worrying too much about things that we can't control, focusing too much on the negativity and the news and the battles and the he said, she said, this side, that side, red, blue, all the stuff that some people really fixate on and kind of are myopic on. And that's what they feed their brain every single day. That's just not something I can do. And after watching this series, I was like, oh, I might be onto something. But I was telling a couple of friends about it the other day and saying that 50% of it is being joyful and laughing and dancing with friends and being in community and being connected. And she looked at me, she goes, well, you're going to live forever then. And that was a huge compliment, because I do really work hard and very intentional on making sure that most of my day is positive. Most of my day is intentionally living the best I can and giving back and doing the things that I know will make people happy, and living a life that I love. So I feel very fortunate for creating that mindset and developing that mindset along the way, which I'm not really sure how I learned to do it, but I have. And it definitely, I believe, makes me more energetic. I'm not in pain all the time. I really feel as if the way my body feels on the regular is due at least in part to that. So let's dive into these 4 different categories. The first one was movement and habit of movement, or something like that. And what they were talking about was many of these cultures, they don't have, like one, I think it was in Japan, they don't even have furniture in most of their house, like chairs and sofas and loungers and couches. Many of the people sit on the floor, and they're actually all day long getting up and down off the floor, using those core muscles and the leg muscles, keeping those muscles strong. And then they also were talking about gardening a lot, that even these women that were in their hundreds were gardening every single day for a couple of hours. It's not, you're not running a marathon while you're gardening, but it's exercise. And the daily life of not having too many of the upgrades of, many of these cultures didn't have like dishwashers or probably washer and dryer, where they're manually doing labor, that we have these wonderful things that do them for us, but we now have taken that time that people in these areas use that time for that labor, which is exercise, and we are sitting on computers, we are sitting on our phones on a couch, we are Netflixing a little too hard every once in a while, and it was really fascinating to just see the overall difference in how they live their lives. And then they also talked about exercise in a different way, where for some of them, it was just recreation exercise. They like to do Tai Chi, they like to do karate, they like to do, I think one of the places they were playing pickleball. And in none of the cultures was it, well, I have to go work out for an hour, because basically their body was working out all day long in just this general way, keeping their body strong, keeping their mind strong. And so that was a huge part of it, was movement in your everyday life, as opposed to I'm sedentary for 23 hours a day, and then I'm going to go to the gym and work out for an hour. And it's just not enough for our bodies. I know I frequently talked to patients when I was in practice of, our bodies want to be hunting and gathering. If we could all go back to hunting and gathering days, our core is strong. We're not keeping a lot of extra weight on our body because we're working out all day long. We're moving our body and keeping it strong and flexible and as healthy as possible. And in today's age, where there's just so much sitting and so much laying down and the wrong positions and too much time on the computer, too much time on technology, our bodies, spines, muscles, they just don't do well with that. So that was it. Movement into everyday life. Next one was positive outlook. How do you feel about your life? How do you feel about your purpose? There were two places that actually had words for a purpose in life, and the one was the Okinawans had hara. Oh no, sorry, ikigai. Ikigai, I believe it is. And that means, what is your purpose? What is your worth? What is your reason for getting out of bed every day? They even said that when they go and get a checkup from their doctor, the doctor obviously takes their blood pressure and probably does some blood work and does an overall checkup. But a big part of that consultation or that doctor's visit is, what is your ikigai? what's your purpose? What do you get out of bed for? And I thought that was really interesting that they bring that concept into their medical check. And I know, within our Western medicine world, that's probably not a big part of most doctors' questions to you. Within, different ways of healing and more natural healing methods. I know within chiropractic, we certainly ask, how's everything going? How's your stress level? It's more about how are your stress levels, not what is your purpose. But I thought just that little shift of, what are you spending your day focusing on? Are you proud of yourself? Are you giving back to your community? Are you giving back to your family? Are you adding value as a human being on this planet? I thought that was really interesting. Just overall joy and happiness. This one woman, oh my gosh, she was so stinking cute. She was like, I just don't get angry. I just think it's a waste of time, and I just try to let it go. And you think about how many of us have anger issues or something that, even just, traffic here and there, just getting so frustrated at things that you can't control. And the people that can just let most of that slide off their back, there's obviously things that you don't want to let slide off your back, and you can't. But overall, those, you're waiting a little too long in line. You're waiting a little too long at the grocery store. Something's, not available at the grocery store. There's so many things we take for granted, I think, in our American US life of, we have everything at our fingertips for the most part. And sometimes the frustration and the feelings of somewhat of anger of I should have everything I need and everything I want in the second that I want it, I think does not serve us well. The next one was eating wisely. So some of this, most of the places that have this longevity talked about eating more of a, not necessarily fully vegetarian, but very plant-based diet, lots of beans. One, I think it was Japan, was a certain type of sweet potato, purple sweet potato. That might have been Sardinia. I get them mixed up. You'll have to tell me once you watch it. And so they definitely relied on those. But, you're talking about things that were grown right in their community, organic, by hand, working by their hand all the day to get that movement in. They know where it's coming from, and the amount of vegetables that they eat, the amount of nutrition that they get, compared to, again, a modern diet that many people eat where we live. It's night and day. Night and day how they're fueling their body. And the stuff that we put in our mouth and chew and digest and work through our system, that's the fuel that we give our body to work or not work. So that was another really interesting one to listen to. And then connecting with others. Again, connection with others is so important. The Branch Moms community, our two taglines are, you're never alone and you're always invited. You're never alone and you're always invited. Not knowing where you belong, or not knowing that you have a space to call home, even if it's not necessarily, your physical home or even your complete extended family, not knowing where you fit in this world is not a good thing for your emotional health. It's not a good thing, apparently, for your longevity. So making sure that you find those niches, you find your tribe. They talked about family, putting family first. A lot of places that have this longevity and lots of centenarians, as they're called, people that live to 100 and beyond. And that sounds like infinity beyond. They live with their family. Now, that may not be practical for a lot of you. It's not necessarily practical for me. I was telling my older son about this, who's in chiropractic school. We saw him this week and had lunch with him. And I was telling him all about this. And I was like, don't worry, I don't plan on living with you. So you can put that worry to rest. So that's not practical for some families, the way we live our lives. However, you also can make sure that you are in, I think they called it moles in one of the episodes, where it was groups of community in your neighborhood, or a group of women that hung out and kind of did life together. And I feel really blessed that I have a number of different groups of women, I let a couple guys in every once in a while, that make up part of my life, that make up sometimes the biggest part of my life. For when I have something exciting to share, they're the people I want to share it with. When I have something that I'm really struggling with, they're the people that I go to for solace and asking for help and asking for just some comfort in some way, shape, or form. So, having community around you, having family around you, connecting with others, making sure that you are not spending too much time alone. I know everyone has little differences. I'm pretty outgoing, but I also have some moments where I really just want to be by myself. Jason was gone for a couple of days. And for the first few days, he was gone for about a week. For the first few days, I'm pretty happy as a clam. Like, all right, I can do whatever I want at any time. Right? I don't have kids at home. My kids are in college, so I'm on my schedule. Anytime I think about what should I do, I don't have to take someone else's opinion or what they'd like to do in consideration. Now, normally I'm fine with that, but every once in a while, having a break from that is fantastic. But if you don't have anyone, it doesn't have to be a romantic partner, but if you don't have anyone that you can share your life with, find a way to connect. There's so many different ways to reach out these days. On the branch, on our moms community, we regularly have moms kind of post who they are and say, hey, I moved here 2 years ago. I just haven't felt like I've made really good friends. I have a 2 and a 4-year-old. I like to play golf. I like to go out for, a glass of wine and some appetizers. I like to knit or whatever they like to do. And they it's almost like a dating profile on our group. And it is astounding how many people reach out and I just send you a private message. I have kids the same age. We'd love to get together at the park, or I like wine. I'd love to get together with you. And sometimes it just takes putting yourself out there and being a little vulnerable, because you don't know when you post that on a mom's group or wherever you might post it. You don't know that other people are going to respond, but the more you do, every once in a while, you're going to hear crickets. You kind of have to just not worry about that, because if you are afraid to put yourself out there, then you're never going to find those people. For some people, it's a church community. For some people, it's their yoga place. I know the place we talk about, Go Brewing, that has non-alcoholic beer. We do co-working events. They have all these, yoga and health talks, and you're finding that community of people that are like-minded, and that can bring a stronger bond really quickly. Another thing they talked about, and I think it was in Japan again, they had, it was called Hara Hachibu. And that meant eating until you are 80% full. And they teach kids this at a very, very early age. So they say it regularly when they're eating, Hara Hachibu. And I thought, yeah, that's something I could have learned a long time back. It's so funny. Sometimes you're overdoing it, and you just it tastes so good. It's very hard. It's one of those hard things in life but if we all followed that, where you're like, all right, I'm 80% full. For those of us that are not dealing with starvation or hunger, which most people listening to this podcast probably are not, there's going to be food later. There's not a food shortage. And so the thought process that we're just going to keep eating until we feel like our stomach is bloated and we feel a little sick and we need to unbutton our pants. Let's save that for Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving once a year, I think, is fair to just bloat the crap out of yourself. Why not? It's fun. I love Thanksgiving. Stuffing. Oh my goodness. I think I've talked about it before. My love of stuffing is probably problematic, but I only have it once or twice a year. So when I have it, I have it. And it's just amazing. So I thought this was just a great thing to talk about today. Again, after I just had my 50th, and I'm talking about what are the habits that I want to have that I think will help my body age as gracefully as possible, because I don't want to sit down and just not get back up, right? I want to take an active part in my life for decades and decades, and grandparent, be a great grandmother, great grandmother. I guess I'd have to be a grandma before I'm a great grandmother. And we have lots of people, lots of my friends, they don't call themselves grandmas because they feel young my friend Patty, she's Gigi. There's a couple other of my friends that they're like, I don't want to be called grandma. That sounds old. Nothing against the word grandma, but when you feel young and you feel full of life, sometimes you want a different word. So if you haven't watched this, I would highly recommend it. I think it's just a really good series, and it opens up your mind to some of the things that you might be doing. Like there was a cartoon portion of like this person, I don't know if it was a guy or a woman, laying in bed, right, for however many hours they're sleeping, and then they sit up and they look at their phone, and then they get up and they might eat something and shower and change, and then they go sit at a computer and sit there for hours and hours and hours, and then they get done and they eat dinner, and then they get up and they sit on the couch and they probably watch Netflix. And I realize I'm telling you to watch Netflix to get this information, but you got to do moderation on things. Anyway, I think it's great. I hope you watch it. Let me know if you liked it. Let me know if there's something that you saw. None of it's earth shattering. I mean, it's not like it's not like you couldn't imagine that. Nothing that anyone said was like, oh my God, that's shocking. Other than the fact that a full 50% of what he said, the research showed in these communities was positive attitude and community at the end of the day. And that's something that's really easy for you to control. Next session or next episode will actually be my 100th episode. I'm very excited. My friend Patty, who was on my second episode, is going to come back and chat with me and celebrate Socket's 100th episode. And I was listening to our podcast today from my practice here. I had to go into the office for a few moments today. And so I was listening to our podcast, and what we talked about was, let me pull it up. We talked about the 3 tenets of Socket. What do you need to toss? What do you need to recycle? And what do you need to elevate? And this was we both went back and forth as to what we needed to do. And this was taped close to 4 years ago. So it's going to be interesting to compare. So for toss, Patty's was the idea of what my life would look like and what it is now, and how I can kind of come to terms with how it looks and what things didn't work out for me. Mine was giving up going to lots of galas and parties and big events, and actually, working towards kind of unfriending a few people that weren't serving me well. For recycle, Patty's was relationship with her spouse, because she had her own job or her own company now, and she just had to allocate time in a different way and figure out different ways to spend time with him, because she used to have more time. And she also talked about boundaries with her clients. I talked about my relationship with myself and how I speak to myself, and it was awful. So it'll be interesting to get that update on how I do today. For Elevate, for Patty, it was things that bring her joy and clients that bring her joy. And for me, mine was elevating my health. I had turned 45 the year before, so I was almost 46 when we taped this, so 4 years ago, and plugging into my health. And we'll get a little update on that as well. So I hope everyone enjoyed my little recap of Live to 100, and I look forward to seeing you next time, or hearing you next time, on the next Socket podcast, which is my 100th episode. Have a great day. Thanks, everyone.